Hello, folks. Richard Moore, United States Anti-Gang Stalking Association and North Mississippi Anti-Gang Stalking Association. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Gab, WordPress, Tumblr, etc. I appreciate each subscriber. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, I encourage you to subscribe, share, like, and share your comments below. I'm going to speak on a subject that I've spoken about a few times, and this is Jessica Stacks. She's been missing for 10 months, Union County, Mississippi. Inside Edition covered this. They quoted essentially what the sheriff, Jimmy Edwards of Union County, is basically they're parroting the information given by the chief law enforcement officer of Union County. So this is the first issue I want to cover. Through a personal interview with Jessica's mother, and I have received information from various individuals in Union County that either know Jessica Stacks or purportedly have some type of information. And we are in a sea of misinformation. I'm going to try to make it as clear as possible the reason we're 10 months out and we don't have any answers. Unlike the Pedigo case in Florida and some of the other well-publicized cases of someone missing, it seems that with Jessica, that the longer we go, the more the colder and the trail gets, if you will, and the less media attention it's received. One would think that the local media in North Mississippi, WCBI in Columbus, and WTVA in Tupelo, and the Columbus Dispatch newspaper, and the Tupelo Daily Journal, respectively, would focus more attention on this serious matter. Yesterday, I photographed and posted something that I haven't seen, not in North Mississippi, especially in Ground Zero, which is Tupelo, Mississippi, in Lee County, which is one county over from Union County. And it prominently displayed lettering on a vehicle, and it's addressing human trafficking. We need to see more of that. And that is on, I did post that on my Facebook page. This is a handwritten statement that I have that Kathy Story, the mother of Jessica Stacks, I interviewed her here. I partially posted a recording. It's got a little video in it of this very emotional exchange of words in this conversation, that other people were present in other locations, an investigative journalist and also a medical doctor. And so we asked several questions and allowed Miss Story to air her concerns about her missing daughter. I don't believe anyone knows their child or knows a person better than their own mother. And I think this is absolutely the case with Kathy Story. Now, Kathy has been dismissed by many, and this is based on the things that I've read and heard on social media. God forbid we get the straight of it. And I have issues with, especially members of law enforcement, those in positions of trust. I have issues with them dismissing and marginalizing the victim and the victim's family. In this case, not only is Jessica Stacks an obvious victim, her family are victims as well. As those that are not connected to this case and go about your daily lives and your daily schedule, Jessica's mother is not able to do that. Her daughter is missing. She has no answers. She's being the mother, and other family members, I can assure you, are having to experience daily anguish and torment, and they themselves are held captive and hostage in a sea of unanswered questions. What I do believe and what I do know is that the very answers to those questions lie within individuals in Union County, Mississippi. We're not getting the whole story because the whole story implicates those in positions of trust and power, including the Sheriff of Union County. For the Sheriff of Union County, Jimmy Edwards, to come clean with what's really going on in Union County, not just with Jessica, but everything as a whole, has far, wide, and very deep implications for a lot of people that have mud on their shoes, and they absolutely will not tolerate any chance of being exposed. It's only when we get the corrupt barrel emptied out, scattered out, and we're able to separate the wheat from the chaff to find out what's really going on. Well, you have those members of Mississippi Department of Public Safety that have cast their lot with a program, Citizens Corps, COPS program, also known as community policing, and many of us refer to it as stalking or gang stalking. It's not a gang as a traditional definition or conventional definition of gangs would be. So it's actually misleading. But is it a gang? Yes. I believe back in the days, before my time, there was a hit television series, Little Rascals and Our Gang. And you know what? We didn't equate that with the street gangs and so forth that they like to associate that with. So we've got different kinds of gangs under the guise of different names. Maybe it's the Ladies Auxiliary, or the more sinister, evil fraternal order of the Masons. And that always gets me unwelcomed attention when I mention and out the Masonic people for what they really are. This is from Kathy's story. It's around 10 a.m. on January 1st, 2021. She called her daughter's phone. Now, this is the day that Jessica went missing. Now, understand that Miss Story explains that something in her gut, in her heart, in her soul, told her that something was wrong. We can't dismiss a mother's intuition about her own children. And I'm not going to dismiss it. And I have no reason to dismiss it, nor does anyone else. She called her daughter's phone. Some man answered. So answered the phone. The conversation went like this. He answered, said, "Hello?" I said, "Who is this?" He said, "Willie." I said, "Where's my daughter?" He said, "I've got them out doing something for me." Now this was at 10 o'clock in the morning. I said, "Well," I'm just quoting what she wrote here. I said, "Well, what the hell are you doing with her phone?" He said, "They left it with me so that when they were ready for me to pick them up, they could call." I said, and when I say I said, this is Kathy Story, the mother. "Well, have my daughter call me as soon as she gets back." Okay, around 8 p.m., same day, I called my daughter's phone again. A guy answered. I said, "Has my daughter not made it back yet?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, where the hell is she?" His voice changed in an evil way and said, "I don't know." Her phone went staticky, and I started screaming into the phone and said, "I don't know who the hell you are and what you're doing with her phone, but I'm calling the police and having her phone pinged." So at this point, she has threatened or promised that she would, in fact, call the fox that's guarding the hen house. Reading on down. It wasn't a few minutes later, Jerry Baggett, that's her daughter's boyfriend, daughter, Hannah, messaged Miss Story on Facebook and asked me to call her. So I called Hannah. When she answered, she said, "Hey, I'm Jerry's daughter, and I know you're worried about Jessica. I don't know how or why she would think that unless whoever had Jessica's phone called her, or she called the vet letting them know, or was sitting beside them, or she heard me screaming in the phone when she was screaming at the guy earlier." So they began to tell me that Jessica and Jerry put a boat in the river and put a boat in the river, and the motor on the boat went out. It's the first time I've heard anything about a motor being on the boat. The motor on the boat went out, and they started going fast. So Jessica jumped out of the boat onto the bank and said that my dad was trying to stop the boat by hanging on to branches, and he got his hands all scratched up. So that explains why his hands were all scratched up from grabbing limbs. Didn't know about that either. They went down the river looking for her. I told her that that's bullshit. I can tell you exactly what happened. Your daddy has done killed my daughter. I'm calling the police. This was what Kathy said. I hung up on her and was trying to find a number to the New Albany Police Department. And I believe she's referring to Union County Sheriff's Department. Hope to God she didn't call the New Albany Police Department. I mean, you'd be better off calling a Cub Scout den master. Within that time, Hannah sent me a text. Back to back. First one said, "Someone picked up Jessica." The second one said, "Jessica said I was wanting to tell you that before you hung up." So I tried to call Hannah's phone right back. No answer for about 45 minutes or so. When Hannah finally did answer, I said, "Who picked up Jessica and where is she?" Then she said, "Well, no one picked her up. We were just wondering if I know anyone named Sam." So I started cussing at her. After 10 p.m., Jessica was then reported missing by Hannah's husband. Jerry Baggett didn't even report his own girlfriend missing. Jerry Baggett was never talked. Jerry Baggett has never talked to me about this. I have voice recordings of Jerry and Hunter Baggett explaining what happened. Nothing makes sense. Says the investigators are Brian Carpenter and Chris Chappell. So this was the mother's exchange, and she wrote that her penmanship is way better than mine. So I'm, but still, in the heat of the moment is the best time to document and write down what is being said and what's going on. In this case, and what the newspaper reported, and I don't want to just rehash this stuff of finding the boots and so forth. And there's been a lot of stories that they found her boots, they were cut off of her, so someone else could put the boots on and make footprints and so forth and so on. To the information that I have, that the only footprints that were seen and documented were that of someone with tennis shoes on. Never any prints from the boots that were found on the bank, a coat that was found on the bank. This is very cold. It's January. It's cold. The coat belonged to someone else, etc., etc. As I first reported, this all of this sounds very suspect. Suspect in such that they're floating down the river. I've seen video surveillance footage of the vehicle, the pickup truck pulling the boat. I saw that for the first time today. I've seen this particular pickup truck many times in Union County. It has some remarkable, identifiable characteristics. This truck has always been one that has been very closely associated with organized community policing, also known as criminal stalking. The same truck. It has very identifiable, distinct, remarkable characteristics, and I witnessed that. And I saw the surveillance footage from a convenience store where the boyfriend was getting out at the gas pumps, and the passenger door was cracked. There was obviously someone in the truck, and they're assuming that was Jessica. There's no way to ascertain that at all by that camera footage. I believe that this stop and this little charade in front of the camera with someone opening the door was all to mislead an investigation that would be taking place of some sort. I believe that the facts of Jessica's purse and her belongings were left in the boat, and she jumped out, but somehow managed to get her hands on a knife to cut the boots off her, and so forth. I don't believe Jessica was ever in that boat that day or in the area that was searched. I believe that was all a diversion tactic. Now, why do I believe that? Because of what I do know about this program, that it is designed as organized chaos. What looks like chaos to the layperson actually has an intended outcome. And it is very organized in such that it looks chaotic. There's so much information. There's so many different stories. There's so many different scenarios that can be poured into this situation of this young lady missing. This is a real person that's missing. Some of the prominent things that stand out that lead me to this obvious conclusion that, in fact, the chief law enforcement officer of Union County, at least he come clean with his involvement as it pertains to targeting citizens in Union County that are deemed undesirables. It's that simple. It's been mentioned several times that Jessica may or may not have used illegal drugs. That is not a mitigating factor in Jessica missing. How many people on this team that's been working and searching for Jessica, supposedly? Well, let's talk about their habits and their use or not using illegal drugs. Let's put them under the microscope. Why would they do that? This is simply to justify and dismiss someone that this is a sellable and very palatable excuse, especially in the dirty South. Well, they were fooling around. They were practicing in promiscuous behavior. They were on dope. They loved it. They're on dope. And so that John Q. Citizen says, well, there you go. They're out there on dope. And so that explains it, and that's the deal. In this interview that I did with Miss Story, within a week of the time that Jessica was reported missing, and my thoughts on this is that Jessica, something happened to her on the last of December, not January the 1st. Whatever happened to her, wherever she went, whether she's missing or being trafficked somewhere else in this country, that's yet to be seen. I still believe that human trafficking does play part in what is going on here, which is part of a much larger, sinister network of criminals outside of Union County. But couldn't be made possible unless the players in Union County and the Mississippi Department of Public Safety, Mississippi National Guard, and all of these government agencies that holistically work together in community policing. This COPS program is listed on the Department of Justice website, Citizen Corps, respectively, on their website. This is the front lines of policing, in their words. Well, it sounds good, but what they're not telling you is what's really, really going on. It's when they operate outside of the law and systematically deny civil and constitutional rights of American citizens, not just a few. I'm talking hundreds of thousands daily, funded by taxpayer money. This comes through grant money that goes to the volunteer fire department, the emergency management, and even the local school systems, where they organize in churches and with community organizations to work together to make the community a safer and better place for people to live. Again, that sounds good, but what they're doing is they have what I call as a hit list, and once you're on it, you're on it. Occasionally, well, more than occasionally, things do go wrong. Mistakes are made because they operate, and the criminal element of this is in plain sight. But because we have law enforcement and all these people working together, prominent business people, judges, lawyers, preachers, what have you, it is dismissed as legitimate behavior, and their story is easily sold. Their job is to absolutely smother and suffocate the victim at anything that they may say and dismiss them as suffering from some type of psychosis or liar, they're on drugs, or all of the above. In other words, the victim becomes the criminal, becomes the bad guy. This is real. This is not only happening in North Mississippi, but it's happening across this country. One doesn't have to do too much work to research. Now, I'm not saying that all of these sites and all this information is legitimate, but targeted individuals and human trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, and child trafficking is very real, and it's all associated with the same group of people. Yes, those people that took an oath to protect and to serve the people and protect the Constitution are the very ones that we must hold accountable when we have these stories like this. And I published the recording of the very vile, vulgar profanity that Sheriff Jimmy Edwards used while speaking to Jessica's mother, Kathy Story. I published it. I won't repeat it. It's too early in the morning. But it's language that would absolutely make a sailor blush. Now, I don't think that that is acceptable by any means. I don't think it's acceptable that Jimmy Edwards is still the sheriff at Union County, Mississippi. I'd love to know. I'd love to have the list of individuals' names that actually went to the poll and voted for him. Because not only is he culpable and responsible for unimaginable crimes against humanity, against people right here in Union County, those people that went to the polls and voted and continue to support him are just as culpable as he is. He didn't mince any words with Miss Story, saying the FBI would not touch this with a 10-foot pole. Now, I didn't know that Jimmy Edwards was the official spokesperson for the FBI, but I have no doubt in the validity of that statement. I have no doubt in the validity of that statement. You see, in this war, this secret war that law enforcement fights, and they supposedly, but it is everybody's getting paid, and it's a money-making, crime pays, money-making operation, bilking the taxpayer, the federal government, fraudulently, of grant money. Jimmy Edwards has no issues with violating an individual's constitutional civil rights. He has no issues whatsoever. He's named in 2 federal lawsuits that I have currently against him, and they're fighting tooth and nail. They absolutely do not want to cooperate with discovery, and they're being transparent. They have an issue with being well, that's intrusive. They're screaming qualified immunity. Well, qualified immunity is a good thing, and it curtails a lot of unnecessary harassment and frivolous charges and lawsuits against law enforcement because mistakes are made. But when law enforcement conspires together with other people in positions of power, including their state actors, those frontline crash dummies, and an individual is named and a plan is set in place to do certain things to that individual that do involve violating their civil and constitutional rights, I've got news for you. Your qualified immunity is out the door. This wasn't, you well knew ahead of time what you were doing. You absolutely, it was not just in the course of an honest mistake. This is called crimes, high crimes and misdemeanors, my friends. This is where we need to be looking. Can you trust the Mississippi Department of Public Safety, NBN and MBI? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. When I speak to you about these things, I'm speaking to you on firsthand knowledge. They cannot be trusted. Cannot be trusted. I've had more than one attorney that practices federal and state criminal law and told me, I won't name that individual's name. Actually, it was two individuals, and I'm not going to name their names because they too themselves would become targets and be victimized by these very people. So it's been confirmed on very solid and good ground of the information I'm giving you. Does that mean that they're all bad, that they're all corrupt? I'm not saying that. But I'm sure not saying it's just a few bad apples that make them all look bad. No. That is, you better get off with a few bad apples deal. There's a few good apples that are overwhelmed by the bucket of rotten ass apples in law enforcement and those in positions of trust, whether it's EMA, in your volunteer services, judges, prosecutors. It's a long, nasty list. Because of all of these elements that I've just mentioned, is the reason we don't have any answers about Jessica Stacks. Her boyfriend, her dad, that's no longer with us, was best friends, and frontline, gold star, main, confidential snitch. Now we've heard the old saying, like father, like son. And you know, the nut doesn't fall far from the tree. It would be detrimental for law enforcement to expose the truth about what happened if they really do a real investigation concerning the boyfriend and his knowledge. I'm telling you that the boyfriend probably has a whole lot to say. I guarantee you the boyfriend knows every single answer in detail as to where, who, what, when, where, and how of Jessica Stacks. There's no question in my mind. There lies the answer. Well, why are we not hearing it? Because he is not going to take the lick for his law enforcement buddies that have been propping him up and allowing him to have free run on drugs and everything else. He knows too much. He knows too much. They can't afford for the boyfriend to be scrutinized in any shape, form, or fashion. So they will do everything within their power to keep a legitimate member of the FBI to conduct a legitimate investigation of this very serious matter, which falls squarely in federal jurisdiction. Why? Because it involves corrupt law enforcement on a local and state level. That's why. That's the steps you have to take, and that's where it is. But Sheriff Edwards said they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. This blue line of blue wall of silence, of blue lives matter, is deplorable. Absolutely deplorable. It's not the call of the sheriff or anyone else in the community to decide whose life is and whose life isn't important. All lives matter. That should not be problematic. All lives matter. And regardless of what your opinion is of their addictions, hang-ups, or if they've committed crimes or what have you, we already have a system in place for that. It's called due process. It's not called this is the other program that we don't talk about. We do to a point, but no one gets the real story. What are you really doing? Cumulatively, with so many different individuals involved in this chaos, it's be very difficult for one perpetrator to be able to hand over the whole organization. It's designed like that on purpose. The same way the mafia is designed like that on purpose. You're not going to pinch one guy and he spoil the whole deal. No, 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 no. It takes all the little puzzle pieces, and then you see the ugly, horrible, horrific story right here in the good old USA. As I continue to fight for my civil and constitutional rights, getting arrested for posting and for reporting and exercising my First Amendment protected, even though it's unflattering, free speech. They force me not only into making me unemployable, but force me and drag me relentlessly through the justice system with fake charges. And you've got to have judges and prosecutors. A lot of people have to participate for that to happen. When no crime, the only crime taking place are those that want me to shut up and quit naming their name, talking about the crimes they're actually committing, that I can actually substantiate, and it makes their stories very questionable when they have covered up murders, and not just one but several. I've named those. They've yet to take my statement. They don't want to hear it because God forbid that they listen, and that becomes a part of public record. God forbid they ever be scrutinized. They're going to be scrutinized. There are other individuals right here in Union County that are credible that have not said a word about Jessica Stacks. Chances are, you know exactly what happened. Chances are very good. Well, I mean, there's no chance of this. There's members of law enforcement and there's family members that do. They don't want to get in the middle of this. At least their family, their name and everything they love be destroyed. I'm telling you, it's high time that we put our personal feelings, our personal lives aside, and that we step forward, get a backbone instead of a wishbone, and say enough is enough. Come hell or high water, don't care how it turns out. I think the truth needs to come out, and those people need to tell the truth. And you don't go to the fox guarding the hen house. That is the information center. This is where they control and mitigate the possibility of the truth ever coming out. I know this firsthand. When crimes are committed against me and other people, have photographs, video evidence of crimes being committed. What has law enforcement done? Nothing. Zero, including attempted murder for hire by the sheriff himself. All the physical evidence, witnesses, etc., etc. Has anyone bothered to take down a report about this? No, they're pretending like it didn't happen. And they're using the same talking points about Jessica Stacks. We're working on it. We can't talk about it, blah, 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 blah. And this time, 10 years from now, they'll be using the same. That once they put the story in, they don't change that narrative. They're not going to change that narrative. God forbid anyone step forward and try to change the narrative of Jessica Stacks and what they've told in the beginning. To get the truth, they're going to have to get the boyfriend and charge him. Okay? And oh Lord. And if they do that, he is going to talk and loose slips, honey, sink ships. And they can't afford for those ships to be sunk. So that's why we don't have any answers about Jessica Stacks, and we won't have any until someone closely involved on the inside knows very well what I'm talking about. They have full knowledge of this garbage bin in Union County not to mention Lee County and Chickasaw County. They all work together hand in hand. One's just as corrupt as the other. It's all about keeping their careers and their reputation and their grant money and all of these things. Keep the wheel greased and keep everything going. And do not rock the boat. Those that rock the boat, they will go to no. There's nothing stopping them. They'll go to any lengths necessary to shut down the victim. They will criminalize the victim, dismiss the victim, marginalize the victim by rumors, smear tactics, false arrest, fake charges, and everything else that they can pull out of their box of evil. Everything they're doing absolutely conflicts with our Constitution. When we're able, as a population, as a people, to enjoy true equal protection, we're going to have these problems, and they will continue to fester. Because there's many of us, thousands of us, they're denied equal protection. We're denied life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I encourage you, especially the ones that know, and you've not stepped forward, to share that information. I'm easy to contact. I'll have my contact information. I'm easy to contact through everything that I post. I want to hear from you. You can remain anonymous. But I'm telling you, there's going to be a day when you're going to have to account for that. When you stand before God, you will have to have an accounting for this. And you didn't say anything. That blood is on your hands. That blood is on your hands. As a born-again Christian, I can't imagine having knowledge about such horrible, horrific crimes committed against other people. Not just me, but other people. Families they've destroyed and dismantled. Lives they've absolutely destroyed, dismantled. These are the people that are in positions of trust that we're taught to run to when we have a problem, have nowhere to run. For true believers, for those that believe in justice for all, equality for all, I'm encouraging you to take a stand, not to dismiss what people are planning for the Halloween, the high satanic holiday, going into Christmas. That's a holiday. While Walmart won't even say Christmas or Merry Christmas, God forbid. They have even a problem with a satanic deal and getting all that candy and BS out there. I think we should set all that aside and say, you know what? It's our sons and daughters. When it hits close to home, it could be your daughter. It could be the sheriff telling you and calling you everything but a child of God. And you simply want answers. Is it right? Is it wrong for Jessica Stack's mother to be angry, to be upset that she has no answers, that something is rotten about this deal, that something is amiss, that it's not working, the math does not work? Absolutely. She's fully within her right. It's her daughter. When she goes to bed at night, that is what's on her mind. I know it's not on the sheriff's mind and all these other people that are involved. Now, it may be on their mind, oh, God, I hope I don't get caught and this all blows up in my face and I rot in a penitentiary somewhere. That's probably going through their mind. But doing the right thing isn't. But I believe that I know that there are people out there that want to do the right thing. And this is what I'm doing right now, is calling you out. Do it. Do it. Do it. Until next time, God bless you.